In this video I'm going to discuss the ODBC In-Out port. It's a bit more complicated than the out or in because it's not fixed. It is user configurable. So let's start. So we'll select it. I set up two ports, one to read data from the database and one to write data out to the database. For this example we're going to be using Excel, and while it isn't a database, it'll work for what we're doing here. By chance, both ports just happen to be accessing the same spreadsheet, and we could have combined these both into one port, but I split them up for the example just to show the differences. So we'll look at the out first and select edit, and we see that the enabled is not true, and it's not true because we're going to be using it under script control. If it was enabled, then the refresh rate would apply, and this would be every 1,000 milliseconds or 1 second. It would write out these values. In this case, it's in or out for the script globals or points, but we just set it up for out. In Excel, the table name is the sheet name. So we see the sheet name is tags1 here. So that's the one we wanted to be using. We could have used sheet 2 or 3. In Excel, field names are the first row. So this is field rows, field unit. This could be pressure, temperature, flow, pounds, whatever. The row that we're going to want to, or field name we're going to want to search on is called rows. So we set it to rows. Rows could be over here. It goes by the name, not the column or row numbers. Command active is a point you could set up to monitor when the command is active. We're not going to be using it here. These are the connection parameters, and if you look in the help file there are more examples of connection parameters. This is for Excel, Access, MySQL, Microsoft SQL. They'll vary depending on the driver. Some of them have very common attributes, like the driver name always has to be there. The ODBC server name always has to be there. Other parameters are optional. For example, on a local database, you would need to put in the IP address. We can hit the test button here, and we can actually see that all the connection parameters worked because we can confirm these are the same, they look the same, they have the same values in them. One note of caution, Excel doesn't like for it to be open while another program is accessing the same spreadsheet. It worked here, it probably won't work at runtime, just to let you know. So we're going to be using, because we're just using the out portion of this port, we're going to select the points out, which is different from script globals out. Script globals are script globals, and you can write them to the database just the same as you can write the contents of or the values of points. We set up 3 points here, these 3, and we're going to be writing them out to the field or column of unit, which is this one right here. And we're going to say what row by the name, DS. So row DS is going to go to here. Row VTP is going to be going to here. And row T1 is going to be going to here. You can have thousands of rows if that's what you need. So let's look at a couple of more things before we run the program. We'll close up the spreadsheet. The in looks at its own points. So as we see here, there is no out here. We could have put these all in the same, but we did it separate for the example. But you see there's row DS in, row VTP in, row T1 in, the 3 that we set up. These are the show that we're reading these values from the spreadsheet. So it's going to look at column or field unit. The same row is being written out, but it's going to be reading into the HMI. We have it enabled here because we want it to do it every 500 milliseconds or every half second. So changes that are made in the spreadsheet / database will appear fairly quickly inside the HMI. We have the same test button as on the out, and it shows that everything is good here. If this name, for example, was incorrect, if we put in, for example, a 9 test, it didn't work because it's missing. So if we change this back to the correct database, like text, okay, there, it's good. So we know that that connection parameter is good. Quickly look at what we set up for scripting. To increment the values, we set up a little script to read the 3 values, to add 1, 10, and 20 to each one, and then write it back out to the internal tags. We're using all internal tags in this case just because it's easier. We see the issue write, which is just a command to tell the port to issue its write side. So it does the write points and it does the global write outs. But here we only have points. So next thing we'll look at is the graphics, and we just have the one window. And here we set up 2 analog grids. This is what's going to be written out. These are the values that are going to be written out to the database, and these are the current values in the database. And if you look, the tags for this one are the DSNs, VTP in, T1 in. It's got all the N values here. This write here, all it does is call the script issue write. So we'll go ahead and run this and see what it looks like. First thing we do, we can look in the event log, see if anything's wrong. So runtime started, logged in, import connection became active. We attempted, became active, and now we're connected. So we know the import's working fine. So these are the values that are actually in the spreadsheet right now. These are the internal values of the HMI. And if we issue ODBC write, you'll see these values reflected what the write was. And if we look at the event log, we'll see that, here's port out. We attempted to connect port out when we connected, and it did the write. So there's the write again, and we see it went over to here, connected, out, everything's fine. And we can do this all day long. We can tell it to write every time. This, for example, is you could use it to log the values when the user started or stopped a pump, for example, just for tracking. So now what we're going to do is we're going to quit, and we're going to change the ODBC out to enable it, and we're going to tell it every 1,000 milliseconds or every second issue the write. You can set this down to like 20 milliseconds. Just be careful that that may be overkill for you, and it may cause loading on slower computers. But for now, it's just going to do it every 1,000 milliseconds or every second. So we save and we start monitoring. And here's our, see, it increments, and then it shows up over here. Increments, shows up over here. Increments, shows up over here. So if we notice that these are 10, 100, 11, 12, 120, and 240, and we look at the spreadsheet, we see those values are there. Okay, that covers it for this port.